Although we'd forecasted a flat year, I think certainly Brexit underpinned that even further. So leading up to June 23rd, things had quietened down, and we expected that. What we found, regardless of that, and clearly days after the announcement were difficult days. I wouldn't say panic, but certainly there were periods where we just didn't know what was going to happen. The uncertainty was very clearly there. But beyond that, whether it be a couple of weeks after the referendum, what we found is that the normality of Gibraltar continued in terms of fluidity at the border was normal. People continued with their daily lives. We didn't have any bad news stories from the point of view of any companies within the finance industries, within the gaming industries, making any decisions. In fact, quite the opposite. Most of them, if not all, saying we are here in Gibraltar and we will remain in Gibraltar. So I think although we'd had that bad news, we also had a great deal to be positive about from the point of view that nothing dire was happening. And I think from that perspective, we've enjoyed actually a relatively good July in terms of sales, which was something that actually we hadn't expected. We've been encouraged by the fact that the sales that we've made have clearly all been owner-occupiers, and I think that's a good thing that to a point, by default, we've halted any further speculation, any further increase in the speculators market.
So essentially what we're saying is that because of the uncertainty surrounding the Brexit vote, people who were investing in a property, speculating on it, they weren't necessarily going to live in it, have been doing that less, and you think that's a good thing?
Well, I think it clearly that we were going to see that slow down anyway, because we'd been through a period during 14 and 15 with developments such as Midtown, King's Wharf and the Ocean Village developments coming on stream, where certainly from our perspective in the consultancy role we've had with some of these developments, we've always made sure, and in fact it's something that I continue to write about, that we underpin it with owner-occupiers, because without an owner-occupier market you don't really have a market. Yes, speculators will always play a part, but I think the more you can reduce the amount of speculators and increase owner-occupiers, the better underpinned the market is, and also with investors who are long-term investors. So with regards to the Brexit element, I think by default, not that I'm saying I'm pleased that Brexit has happened or that the decision was what it was, but it almost by default has slowed down dramatically any speculation, and I think that's a good thing. What it's highlighted is that there is a real owner-occupiers market, because that ultimately and fundamentally is what the market should be all about and what drives the market forward. So from that perspective, that's another thing that I'm quite pleased about.
A good July then. What price range have properties been selling in?
Well, generally, and that's a good question because it has an impact on where things, potentially where we see things going forward. But we've seen the ranges between really the low end of 150, 200,000 pounds up to about 1.2 million. So that's really been the range of properties that we've sold. The average, obviously, there being between 450 and 700,000 pounds. Again, those prices have maintained. We have not seen a dip in prices in that regard, nor am I expecting to see a rise in prices. Like I mentioned before, I think generally we'll see a flat market. What may be affected, and we're yet to see what this whole period that we're going through brings, is the high value market. I think anyone looking at property prices of between sort of 2 million and 5 million, of which there are very few granted in Gibraltar, but certainly it was a market that was getting better. I think we may need to wait a little bit more and reflect a little bit more, certainly from the clients who have been looking at that and are still looking, and just a wait and see of what transpires over the next few months and maybe into next year with the issue of Brexit and how Gibraltar fares in that regard under the UK and in terms of the decisions that they'll be taking.